Hello. Today we're doing a different type of format for the video where I'm going to compare an original with a remake. So this time it's The Seven Samurai versus Magnificent Seven 2016. The Magnificent Seven was directed by Antoine Fuqua and stars Denzel Washington, Chris Pratt, and Ethan Hawke for the most part, with the villain being Peter Sarsgaard. The Seven Samurai, or Shichini no Samurai, was directed by Akira Kurosawa and stars Toshiro Mifune and Takashi Shimura. Okay, so the Magnificent Seven was alright. It wasn't spectacular. It wasn't particularly good. I'm going to forget about this movie fairly quickly. Whereas The Seven Samurai was an almost effortless thing to watch. I sat here for 3.5 hours watching it, and I didn't even glance at the time for an hour and 40 minutes. So just right off the bat, you see Kurosawa's ability to compel you, even though it was in black and white, even though the audio was kind of scratchy, and even though there were times where the subtitles weren't even popping up. I was still more invested in everything that was going on than with Magnificent Seven. Magnificent Seven, all the characters were more or less the same. They had like Kyuzo's level of skill and Heihachi or Kikucho's level of humor, even though the Magnificent Seven was vastly less funny. I was laughing out loud at the Seven Samurai, and I don't even understand their cultural ways. But the Magnificent Seven, Chris Pratt was trying to do his jokes, but I just was not laughing. There were a couple times when I chuckled, but Chris Pratt had nothing to do with that. Because I miss him being fat and schlubby. I'm not as big a fan of Guardians of the Galaxy as everyone else is. Where I think Magnificent Seven went wrong was that they tried to make a more compelling villain, a more not even relatable villain, just a more present villain. They hired Peter Sarsgaard to do it, and he's good and all. He did a fine job with this role, but they didn't give him enough screen time for you to care or relate to him, kind of like Wilson Fisk from Daredevil, where you could get inside of his mind and understand how it worked. As far as I can tell, Peter Sarsgaard's character was just driven by greed. He had one moment where he was saying how he had a tougher road to follow than Rockefeller or Carnegie, even though Carnegie was an immigrant. I'm sure that was much harder. You just didn't care about him, and his army didn't matter. In Seven Samurai, they had 40 guys that they knew about that they had to take out. They did like a little raid, killed a few of them, and then they were just marking them down, circles, and then just Xing them out like they were a commodity, that they were just, depleting their inventory of something, and you were waiting for the zero. Once it got down to zero, they won. But the Magnificent Seven were just fighting an infinite army that just ended when the Gatling gun got taken out. In Seven Samurai, they spent a lot of time in the beginning getting you to care about the villagers and even showing that the villagers were flawed. They had murdered some samurai, which honestly I think might have been let me just sidetrack for a second. Seven Samurai could have benefited if they would have cut out the Katsushiro and Shino love story, because that culminated up to nothing. Even when Katsushiro found the horses in the woods, he was still like the last person to find out about him, other than Kikucho, who wasn't a real samurai. So that part was even useless. I just brought up wasted tension. I'm assuming it's because Akira Kurosawa wanted to have a female role in it. There was probably some kind of unwritten rule about having a romantic arc. But if they would have cut all of Katsushiro's love story out and replaced it with more consequences for the villagers killing the samurai on the run before, like maybe the Kanbei's party would have brought that up more, try to use it as leverage. But that's my suggestion for how to improve Seven Samurai, if I could be so pretentious as to believe that I can improve it. They managed to spend enough time with the villagers to really see their plight, how they were eating millet and just giving away their only rice source back to the samurai that they were trying to convince to help out. Unlike Magnificent Seven, where food didn't seem to be The problem, it was just land. And I don't know, land is like 2 levels higher than food for me. It's like I feel like there's some kind of scale of needs, and food would probably be a more priority than shelter. So I kind of felt more for the samurai villagers than I did the magnificent villagers. So when a villager in the Seven Samurai died, I cared a lot more. In the Magnificent Seven, I don't think that there were any left. I think it might have just been that lady. I mean, there was a small parade of people, but like, yeah, they were basically wiped out. They're gonna have to move. I knew that 4 people were gonna die because of Seven Samurai. I wanted to see, well, I wanted to make sure at least that they were gonna hold up to that. But I wasn't correct in my guess that Chris Pratt would survive because I figured he would be like the main draw if Hollywood tried to franchise this and make it into sequels. But yeah, he blew himself up. It was nice. Okay, but my favorite parts, my favorite actors of the Magnificent Seven were Ethan Hawke and Byung-Hun Lee. They were Ethan Hawke played an old Confederate sharpshooter named Goodnight Robichaux, and I don't see Ethan Hawke that often, so it was just really nice to see him again and playing that kind of role that I've never really seen him play. And Byung-Hun, he played Billy Rocks. He was like a Chinaman who had a bounty on his head, but then Goodnight found him and decided that he needed to be sponsored. So they teamed up together and went on a bit of a road show with Billy Rox's karate gimmicks. But I don't know. I just liked I liked their banter. I liked Ethan Hawke. I thought the Billy Rox's, well, like I just said, karate gimmicks. I thought those were really neat, and I thought they were probably the most impressive part of this. And really, it's my obsession with Asia. That's what it is. Because even with like the Suicide Squad thing, I was paying more attention to Katana than anything else. It's my obsession with Asia. And Vincent D'Onofrio was in it, and he was playing this like Grizzly Adams type, except for he was just more of the stereotypical overly religious guy from any kind of war movie, and he had a funny voice. So wasn't Vincent D'Onofrio in Jurassic World too? So him and Chris Pratt are hanging out a lot lately. Neat. Maybe Guardians of the Galaxy will have to come to Hell's Kitchen. Yeah, let's get into the final battle. Because the final battle in Seven Samurai was like the culmination of several other battles that had happened over the days before, leading up to it. And the rain was coming down, and it was all in black and white, and it was just beautiful. It was kind of like how they mute the colors in a lot of battle scenes nowadays. Since it was black and white, it was like pre-done, and it was really nice. And then the Magnificent Seven was just a bunch of loud bangs and people dying, and you couldn't tell who was who. Well, you couldn't tell who was who in Seven Samurai either, but you kind of got the sense that if it was a bunch of people ganging up on one guy, that one guy was probably a bandit. Whereas Magnificent Seven, they're just shooting at whoever's on a horse, and I don't know who has horses at this point. I know all of the cowboys had horses, but maybe I assume some of the villagers must have. So, I guess overall, I wouldn't really recommend Magnificent Seven. It didn't need to be made. The Seven Samurai format has been done so many times that you don't need to remake one of the earlier remakes of it. It's just make your own movie and use the elements of building your army and hey, make your characters different from each other so that they're not just all wisecracking Mary Sue's. That would be sweet. But and I would like to add though that Denzel Washington was great. I don't see him often that much. He was working with Anton Fuqua again, so Equalizer, Training Day. He did King Arthur. Did you guys know that? Like the one with Clive Owen. I used to love that movie. I still got it. It's on my shelf over there. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend Magnificent Seven. Don't give them any money. Try to tell Hollywood that Chris Pratt needs to go back to being fat and schlubby because I miss that. I miss my Andy Dwyer. Honestly, I miss him from like even Moneyball. I would prefer because he was just fat and schlubby in that, and it was great. That was really my first introduction to Chris Pratt because I didn't see Parks and Rec until after I saw Moneyball. After I saw Lego Movie, and like Lego Movie, he was just the main character. He didn't mean anything to me. But do go see the Seven Samurai. Do whatever you have to see it. It was great. If you don't like old movies, see this one anyway. Just as like, because it's entry level. It's not Casablanca, so you're not just like waiting for anything to happen. Just listening to people talk in essentially a language you don't understand. Because Casablanca, those people were speaking so fast, I couldn't believe it. Um, whereas Seven Samurai, like I at least understood a little bit of the words that they were saying. I noticed that they didn't say any Wasaego words. I consider myself to have a pretty good ear for that. But okay, so yeah, I'll give you guys that. I'll see you. Bye.